They beat me and gave me electric shocks. Then they raped me.
The place was filthy. The blankets were dirty. Imprisoned women had no choice.
What happens to those who suddenly find themselves behind bars in Taliban prisons? These stories often go untold, as most victims of the regime are threatened or forced into silence. Despite the risks, 3 women living under Taliban rule have shared their stories with RFARL. Each of them was arrested and interrogated by the Taliban.
I live in Kabul. I'm 25 years old. I'm a university graduate from Afghanistan. I have worked as a journalist and had an NGO for women. When Kabul fell, the Taliban cancelled my NGO registration. The document became just another paper.
This is the story of a young woman who reports being raped in Taliban custody in Kabul. We do not disclose her identity or her voice, as she remains in Afghanistan. She was detained by the Taliban twice for protesting the ban on women's education and work.
On March 19, 2024, another group of Taliban raided my house again. And this time they took my phone and laptops as well when they arrested me. They put a black bag over my head. They asked me to open my phone with my password. They beat me and gave me electric shocks. I was forced to give them my phone password.
The Taliban used her phone contact list to capture another protester who she was in contact with.
Then they raped me. They called me a woman without character. They said I was already ruined. They were 4 men. When they released me from prison, they didn't hand me over to my family. They sent me to a public hospital because I was in such a bad way.
When she finally got home, she had to be admitted to a private hospital. Her whole body was in pain and bruised. She was bleeding heavily. It was a long road to recovery, but a few months later, her situation deteriorated.
I had to take a pregnancy test. When it came back positive, it did not even bother me. I had an abortion at a private clinic and was hospitalized again. I still don't feel well.
She says she was threatened with stoning if she ever spoke up about what happened to her in jail. She doesn't go out anymore, but they didn't manage to keep her silent.
The only thing motivating me now is that I have to tell my story. We women were not supposed to be treated like this. We did not deserve this kind of treatment. I still live in Afghanistan and I'm confined to the 4 walls of my room.
25-year-old Hakima Mahdavi has also protested against the Taliban. She was a psychology student at University of Kabul before the Taliban regained power.
They banned our education. That's why we thought that we should protest. We, some female friends, gathered in a restaurant in the west of Kabul. We wanted to plan for International Women's Day, but unfortunately the Taliban surrounded us there and closed the doors for the restaurant, and I was arrested there. They forced women who were there to say that they were there for illegal activities, not for eating.
When the Taliban realized that Hakima was one of the women who had protested against them, they separated her from the other restaurant goers, put a covering on her head so she couldn't see anything, and then took her with them. She was detained for almost 24 hours. The Taliban demanded a ransom of about 1 million Afghanis, approximately $14,000, from her family for her release.
My family was able to prepare 800,000 Afghanis, approximately 11,000 American dollars. They couldn't bring the whole amount of 1 million Afghanis.
Hakima was released after her family paid the Taliban, and she signed a written vow promising not to participate in any activities against the group. After this, she started considering fleeing the country to escape the situation.
I had to leave the country. The Taliban does not allow women to travel alone, so I decided to immigrate to Iran with a family who took me with them as their daughter-in-law.
It's not just female protesters who are being arrested by the Taliban. More women are being detained under vague pretexts. Many others have been detained for so-called moral crimes, which include violations of the Taliban's strict dress code, appearing in public without a male guardian, etc. A 45-year-old woman from Kandahar, a city in southern Afghanistan, told us how she was detained while trying to get home. She traveled alone to get an amulet from a mullah. Again, we have disguised her voice and identity for her safety.
A young boy was lying on the roadside. I asked him where the taxi stand was. He said taxis didn't come this way in the evening, only in the mornings. He asked me if he can take me to the taxi stand, and from there I would know how to get home. I said yes. He stood up. Immediately a car came and stopped in front of me. There were two men inside. They took us to another place.
The Taliban took her to prison where she spent a total of 2 months after being accused of adultery.
There were 2 rooms and 2 restrooms in the prison. The place was filthy. The blankets were dirty. Imprisoned women had no choice. They slept together in one place.
She was released only when her husband found her and made appeals for her innocence.
Then my husband left me, and so did my son. Women don't have anywhere to go.
Taliban officials have not responded to RFERL's inquiries about these women for allegations of sexual assault in their prisons. A former Taliban deputy spokesperson, Bilal Karimi, previously denied any operations against female protesters, claiming that women use such accusations to seek asylum abroad. Some women have also been imprisoned because they were victims of domestic violence. According to a United Nations Assistance Missions in Afghanistan report, victims of the gender-based violence were often sent to prison as the Taliban has closed down shelters and support centers for abused women. Taliban officials have dismissed shelters as a Western concept, and the situation is only getting worse.